Hello, everybody. We are back for the second half of this episode of Boxcars. So here we are once again, your host, Chad, Captain Tempest, and with me I got Zack, Cryolord530.
Hey.
We are leaving the Vernon Diner right now. Zack, what'd you have?
I had a spicy buffalo chicken wrap, which was all right. Wasn't bad.
All right, good. I myself had a Monte Cristo with some waffle fries.
Always neat.
Yeah. Good stuff. So, now that we've eaten, we're going to continue the rest of Boxcars talking about the other game that we had in mind.
So, the Steam sale happened, and when I was looking at the Steam sale, I saw a number of games that I could get, I got a couple. One of the ones I picked up for $6 was Mad Max. Now, Mad Max, I love the Mad Max series. It's the pioneer of apocalyptic fiction when it comes to movies, when it comes to a lot of the tropes and stuff that you see. And I just really wanted to see how they did with the game, because I was a huge fan of Fury Road. I was a huge fan of Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. I haven't seen Mad Max, the second one, before, but
one of the classic ones, with Mel Gibson.
Yes, because Mad Max's 1, 2, and 3, which is Mad Max, Road Warrior, and Beyond Thunderdome, are all Mel Gibson.
Gotcha.
And the way it works is the very first one is essentially a biker revenge movie that isn't about the apocalypse, where society is breaking at the seams, but the apocalypse hasn't happened. Then out of left field, they bring you Road Warrior, which is actual apocalypse with the great humongous. And then the third one is Beyond Thunderdome, which they made to just make money, but it has Bartertown, it has Thunderdome, it has two men enter, one man leaves.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you get a lot of good stuff out of that.
You get a solid amount of pop culture just from the Beyond Thunderdome. But Mad Max fans didn't really like Thunderdome when it first came out. Then Fury Road happened, and Fury Road is great. So I decided to pick up Mad Max the game, see how it compared to everything else. It's good. It's by Warner Brothers, so it's basically a carbon copy of one of their other successful games, the Arkham Asylum series.
Okay.
So you have a lot of the same mechanics. It's something that if you picked up Mad Max, you'll understand the fighting mechanics pretty easily, because it's basically block and parry some attacks, light and heavy strikes, and every once in a while they do an attack where you have to dodge that you can't block. Stuff like that. And then they also add tons of car combat, because car combat is essential to the Mad Max universe, and customization of your cars, using various ramming abilities to mess up dudes, using nitrous to get across the wasteland quickly, things like that. They do a very good job with with the game. It's a standard sort of open world sandbox kind of game, but it defies a lot. So for instance, I really enjoy open world games. That's one of my jams.
Yep.
But Mad Max does a very good job of being an open world game that is empty, but not so much that you forget that there are different factions in society. It's so empty that you realize, wow, this is the apocalypse, but not such that you're wow, there's a lot. Every once in a while you'll run into a faction of guys driving cars and coming after you, screaming and firing off weapons at you and trying to ram you off the road. But there are also periods where you're just going past a sea of dunes and bombed out buildings from the past and
right.
All kinds of crazy stuff.
What you're saying is that the landscape, there's always something to kind of see or do. It's not like in what's another sort of open world-ish type game that I'm thinking of?
Well, okay, so Infamous is a totally different game.
Yes.
And I'm only using it as a comparison because there's a lot going on in Infamous, but not that you can interact with. So Infamous, there's a whole city full of people, and all the citizens are going about their lives, and there's buildings that you can climb. But there's only there's a couple of side missions, and there's the main mission, and after that there's maybe a couple things you can grab, but other than that you're good.
Well, I was talking more about the landscape itself. Now that I remember it, I was going to draw a parallel between it and Fallout New Vegas.
Okay.
It still holds the post-apocalyptic universe sort of thing. I'll say it out here. New Vegas the overworld was kind of weird for me. Like, we've talked about this on the podcast, obviously,
Right.
so I'll be very brief about it. But it's just like, we love the game. Like, the game's fantastic. Storytelling is awesome. Like, there were just so many good things about New Vegas.
Yeah.
The overworld was a little weird because there were just long spans of time where you just see, like, absolutely nothing except barren wasteland.
Well, it's very
And when I
open.
think of Mad Max, like, you see those, like, open, like, desert plains, and
Here's the
that's
thing.
what I'm kind of assuming that the game would have been like, too.
So here's what Mad Max does right. That is like a weird thing with New Vegas, but Mad Max is like, it's okay for there to be like rolling expanses of nothing. Is that you have cars, so you're traversing it really fast.
Okay, that's true, too.
Because
yeah.
if you had to walk the Mad Max like realm, it would be unbearable.
Yeah.
It would be like a really crappy New Vegas.
Yeah. I mean, at least New Vegas does have a lot of very, like, scenic and memorable locations.
Yeah.
It's just, like, they're really, like, spaced out because it makes
very
you walk.
spaced out.
It makes you walk the whole fucking Mojave.
Well, what happens is, like, Mad Max does a really good job of... there's a lot of space to cover. And at the beginning of the game, there's a lot to do in between. You'll have, like, objectives that you have to destroy with your car, like, various, like, sniper watchtowers. You'll have, like... enemy camps that you have to clear of enemies and like destroy their fuel reserves and things like that. There are various convoys that you have to attack and blow up to get their stuff. And there's cars you have to steal. There's people you have to fight. And they do a very good job at the beginning of the game of like really filling the map with it. And it's one of those things where near the end of the game, you do have moments where you're just driving and you're like, man,
You wish you had something to do or somewhere to go. Something like that.
It should be a good feeling because you're like, oh, I've cleared this area of like raiders. People are kind of safe here, but it's still like Mad Max, so there's still like a faction of like random jerk raiders that come after you. So like every once in a while you get guys, but you get them less frequently.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that I noticed about my playthrough is you mentioned being sort of a completionist before. I have that same sort of affliction, which is the worst thing to have in open world games, because open world games are so dang big all the time, and they fill themselves with stuff all the time.
Collectibles and secrets and stuff like that.
It's painful. And so, like, I had a thing where I like went and I kept doing things and I kept leveling my guy up with just scrap that I was finding, and but like I finally progressed to like a very solid midpoint of the game, and I am totally maxed out with my guy. Like all my max is like decked out in armor and like crazy like fists, and then they're like, oh, you have to do the mid game race, and I'm like, oh, well, I've already like maxed out my car. Like, what does this give me? Cool tires. All right, but like,
do they do anything?
Really good tires.
Yeah.
Well, like the tires are like, oh, it's the best tires for if you're driving on the road, and I'm like, yeah, I off-road a lot, so I'm gonna stick to the tires I have. But
Gotcha.
They're like, oh, you'll unlock heavy plating, and I'm like, I don't need.
So
heavy plating.
in being a completionist, you also kind of like min-maxed ahead of time and then went back to do a lot of stuff.
I accidentally min-maxed, and so like combat is easy when I'm going after like a couple of the smaller groups. Like, okay, if I have to stop by a place for scrap and it's like a place I haven't discovered yet, there will be like 5 enemies, easy as pie. Not even a question. I can eliminate those guys without taking a single hit.
Gotcha.
If they drop like 30 enemies on me, I'm in for a bad time. And that's something that like I remember from Batman was like, oh no, there's way too many guys. And if they manage to time their strikes right, I can't effectively block all of them. And then you take damage. But I have enough health and I have enough armor and I have enough stuff to really like avoid really it being in like danger a lot of times. It's only when I haven't like properly planned through or properly utilized my stuff. They do do a really good job of characterization. Except for Max, which is fine because he's the main character, so you're supposed to be like, oh, he's just a generic dude.
Yeah, but you're supposed to more of like is it inflect? Yeah, inflect your own personality upon him.
Yeah,
I think I'm using the right word.
No, you're right. So it's the Lego block technique of being able to use yourself as the
protagonist.
Like, yeah.
You're like basically crafting it around what you want him to be, sort of thing.
The problem with that is that Max is already like a protagonist that they've already done in movies.
Yeah.
So there's no like choice. You never make a choice like in the game. There's no like Fallout is very like, oh, you know, make this choice, make that choice, choose this side, choose that side. In Mad Max, it's you have to do these things, and that gets in the way of being like an empathetic person, because Max is an asshole who doesn't like he doesn't like having people who like work with him and like give him things, which is in direct like conflict with his sidekick for the game, Chumbucket, who I have to say, best character in the whole goddamn game. I love Chumbucket so much, even though he's a weird gremlin guy. Well, like, okay, Chumbucket you meet within the first 20 minutes, 10 minutes of the game. And Chumbucket is like your mechanic. He is the reason that you have a car. He is the guy, right? Like, he is like this little... He's essentially, imagine a obsessed cultist, but instead of a religion, he is obsessed with the angel of combustion, as he calls it, which in your world is cars. He's crazy about cars, and he builds you a car from scratch, and then you have to help him like add to the car, and he's always like, oh yes, saintly driver, we must go. My angel of combustion wheels us forward onto the barrens.
So he's kind of like the Lucius Fox to Mad Max's Batman.
Yeah,
in a sense.
Well, he's your Alfred.
He's your Alfred too.
He is your Alfred, and he is there to like. He's your Alfred. He's your Robin. He's like the entire supporting cast of Batman, because he like fixes your car. He's there with you on missions. He fires the rocket launcher. Like, he does it all, man. And he's so like he's an endearing character. Like, you really want to like. If there's one person that I want to like make sure has a good time in my world, it's Chumbucket. Like, if you're going to be friends with anybody, Chumbucket's your like best friend.
Gotcha.
And like the problem with Mad Max is that like Mad Max is a character.
He's more of a loner. Like you don't usually
like having friends. He's like, friends are a problem. I gotta watch out for my friends because they're gonna double cross me. Oh, we're all in it for ourselves. Chumbucket obviously isn't in it for himself. He is the most selfless character in the whole game. He is the nicest character in the whole game, and I like him so much. Which is a problem, because I always feel bad when Max treats him like shit. Which he does.
So we've discussed a lot of the things that you like about the game, and some of your general favorite moments.
Right.
What are some things, you kind of touched upon this, but let's circle back to it. What sort of things do you think kind of dulled the experience a little bit for you? Like, was there anything that was like a glaring issue? Is there anything that you think could be improved?
It's very repetitive.
It's very repetitive.
And that's something that I always see with open world games. It's not like a new problem. Essentially, when you have so much space to fill, it's difficult to fill it with meaningful stuff while also giving you like interesting character models. My number one complaint was they had... So one of the things you have to do is, in order to get different like paint jobs for your car, and another, like an enemy camp that you have to stop is the Top Dog camp, where you get to the top of it, and instead of blowing up people's fuel or like beating up a certain number of guys, you have to fight a mini boss. And the mini boss is always a really big guy in a gimp suit with a different color splashed on his body, and he has the same voice, and he's like, oh, I'm Gut Ripper, I rip your guts. And then the other guy's like, oh, I'm Bone Shredder, I shred your bones. And it's like, okay, I get it.
It's just more of like a reskin of what you've already seen.
What I would have really enjoyed is different styles of Top Dog. I would have enjoyed different, like... And, I would have enjoyed different character models. And I know that's tough. Like, instead of having everyone be, like, a bruiser with a huge two-handed weapon, I'd like to see a bruiser with a two-handed weapon. I'd like to see a sword and board guy. I'd like to see... Or, like, Wasteland equivalent.
Yeah.
I'd like to see a double knife guy. I'd like to see a car fight. Like, in a game that has car fights almost all through it, you'd think that one of the mini-bosses would have a car that you'd, like fight
something that maybe distinctify... Is that a word? Distinctify?
Well,
like something to...
Make each boss, like, something that you, like...
Because they're all a part of different factions anyway, so, like, what if you gave each of them, like, a gimmick or something that you could follow
of gimmick,
through with?
Not just the same guy with, like, a different weakness. Like, the way they set it up is that it's the same guy, and he has some preset weaknesses, but for the most part, you can just, like... The environment is what changes how you play. So, for instance, you fight one guy on top of an oil derrick, and he has, like, you know, some kind of like fire shooting around his stage. So you're like, okay, I bait him into charging into the fire. But otherwise, you can just shoot him with your gun and whack him in the face with a stick.
Yeah. And
that's always an option. So it's one of those, like... And some of the missions do get repetitive after a while. Like, the camps are repetitive. Like, once you've done one camp, you've done them all. Essentially, it's go to this place, beat up guys, go to this place, beat up guys, and then, like, go through and make sure you, like, loot it all the way. That's the whole...
That's the mission, yeah.
That's, for the most part, the missions. I like the side missions a lot when they had them. I like the chances to get to know the characters that are the different leaders of the different fortresses that, like, you help out. I wish that they gave you more missions that, like, coincided with building up their fortresses. And I wish that, like, building up their fortresses made it a little better to be there. The way it, like, ended up being was that, like, as I improved different projects in their fortress, like maggot farms and, like, oil pumps, I would just show up and they would, like, set my resources. But I'd also like to see, like, you know, they're like, oh, the fortress itself is getting better, but really they're just throwing red tarps on stuff instead of no tarps.
Yeah.
So I was just like, I'd like to see a little bit more of, like, the faction, like, building up and doing stuff in the wasteland, and maybe that would turn into missions.
Yeah, just adding a little bit more, like, polish to everything. And
yeah, well, it's a good, like, for $6, definitely.
Yeah, because you got it on a sale after all.
I got it on a sale. For $6, it's a great game. For maybe, like, list price of, like, 30 or 40, no.
Okay.
Like, the game doesn't, like... I really like it. I really like it a lot, but not for $6.
You don't think you would have liked it as much if you paid more for it?
Right.
Okay.
It's a game that, like, I've definitely gotten $6 worth of enjoyment out of, but more than... probably not.
Yeah, not much more. Another thing that I was kind of thinking about in the back of my head right now, video games based on movies tend to have the glaring issue of, like, you know, what do you do in them? And, like, from what you've told me, it sounds like there's a decent amount that can be done in this game that kind of makes it its own unique experience. But how does it hold up to the movie? Because it's like, it's supposed to be in conjunction with Fury Road, or is it like a prequel, sequel, what have you?
So it's non-canon.
Non-canon.
First thing to remember is it's supposedly non-canon by fans of the movies. So yeah, it doesn't... Mad Max is weird because, like, the game doesn't set itself in...
It doesn't set itself in the movie universe at all, really?
Right. Well, it does. So, Fury Road, it basically takes Fury Road's lead, where Fury Road sets out a couple of places: Gastown, Bullet Farm, the Citadel, Immortan Joe, and War Boys, and sort of uses those, and those get, like, collectively taken and, like, sort of dissolved into the Mad Max game, but they don't really, like, ever say, like, what time frame you're in. So, for instance, they mentioned that the main bad guy, Scrotus, is the son of Immortan Joe, but they don't say, like it's weird because you're at Gastown, which is a setting that you don't get to see in Fury Road, but, like, they're like, oh, Scrotus is the head of Gastown, when in Fury Road the head of Gastown is a different guy, the People Eater, who, you know, they have their own story for that, and why he's the leader of that.
So there's not a lot of continuity between the movie and the game, which
don't have a lot. Yeah,
I mean, that tends to be how games based on movies tend to go. Is they go in a very different direction.
Right. Well, here's the thing: the way it sort of sets itself up, it could be right before Fury Road.
Okay.
Honestly, because it has, like, a lot of stuff where you're, like, going and meeting people and stuff, and then at the end of it, like, well, the main thing is at the beginning of it you have the Interceptor, which is the classic Mad Max car, which fans of the show, like fans of the movies, will know the Interceptor, which Mad Max has at the beginning of Fury Road. And you lose it at the beginning of the Mad Max game, but you get it back at the end. I'm not going to say how, because that's spoilers.
Right.
But you get it at the end. And I know from seeing Fury Road, he starts off the movie with the Interceptor. That's all I'm going to say. That, because otherwise it would give it away. And Fury Road is such a fantastic movie. Holy crap, you guys.
You need to watch it.
Well, I can't not... I cannot praise Fury Road enough. Because it
did a lot of amazing things for the cinematic industry.
Fantastic stuff. And, like, it was just a movie that, like, I watched and, like, I couldn't stop watching when it was happening. And afterwards, it was just, like, horrible stuff is happening, but, like, your eyes are, like, wide open, and it's just so intense. But, yeah, like, it was one of those things where I was looking through, and, like, they have references to stuff in the Mad Max game, but, like, it doesn't ever really, like, turn into it's its own Mad Max movie, essentially.
Okay.
And you can sort of see that in how it's, like, there's not a central... Like, there's a central plot, but it's not a plot that's not, like, reliant on other characters. Like, you'll have whole sections where you're hanging out with Gut Gash, who's, like, the leader of a stronghold set inside of a boat. And then you have to go and help him on a bunch of missions. And then they do a nice, like... Where Fallout has a lot of very good set pieces when it comes to setting, Mad Max is really great at having, like, things. Like, they have... they have the White Tower Fortress of Pink Eye, and that is the remnants of a nuclear silo.
Okay.
And they have Jeet's Stronghold, which is like a lighthouse on, like, a cliff. And all of its people, and they don't have guns because they haven't gotten any, like, bullet farmer trade. So they all use crossbows. Like, a lot of people have crossbows in this universe. And, like, stuff like that. And, like, it's really cool to see these characters. I wish I had more time to spend with them, because all the characters seem like they have really unique outlooks, and they all seem like fun. It's always fun to do missions for these people. And I wanted to do more missions for them. And I wanted to, like, spend more time getting to know, you know, Jeet and the people in his stronghold, and Gut Gash and the people in his, like, he's, like, the head of this weird cult where they say they worship the water gods because they believe that this desert that you're in, which is obviously formerly an ocean, because there's, like, tons of docks and boats that have been stranded, and, like, wrecks of and lighthouses, and you're like, oh, this was obviously and, like, dead coral, and you're obviously like, oh, this is a ocean that has dried up that you're driving through. And, like, so he's like, oh, we believe that the water will come back to this land, and our boat needs to be shipworthy for when that happens so that we can ride it like Noah in the ark. And that's super cool, and I'd love to explore that a lot more.
Yeah.
The game just kind of has it as, like,
as not necessarily a throwaway location, but just something that's just kind of there that they wanted to include. You keep coming
back, and, like, you have to, like, lower the threat of Scrotus, the main bad guy, in the enemy, in their region. But, like, once you do that, there's nothing else to do for them. And they don't really react as much as I'd like when I, like, get stuff done for them.
Yeah.
And it's one of those, some parts of it feel kind of shoehorned in at times. There's, like, a romantic interest and her kid that I'm supposed to care about. But, like, I'm there with my buddy Chumbucket, and, like, ultimate bromance.
That's all that matters.
The ultimate bromance can't be stopped.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
What? And I know that's kind of, like, insensitive for me to say, like, oh, you should help the only attractive woman in the wasteland and her kid. Like, yeah, but Chumbucket's my, like, loyal, like, come on.
Yeah.
The dude literally, like, rides in the back and then, like, climbs over the hood to fix your car while it's on fire, while raiders are, like, running into it and shooting fire at you through their exhausts. Chumbucket for life.
You can't beat that. Chumbucket for life.
Also, they do this thing where you get a dog at the beginning of the game, and he doesn't do jack. Like, he doesn't do anything except for help you sniff out minefields. Which, you're like, oh, that sounds kind of neat. And how did they do that? They don't do it well. Well, okay, so he is only available in one vehicle, which is Chum's buggy, and when you have Chum's buggy, you don't get Chumbucket. So you can't repair your car. You can't, like, all you have is the dog in the back, and all the dog is good for, like, the dog can't fight. The dog doesn't even leave the back of the car because of his messed up paw. So all you get to do with the dog is defuse mines.
And that's it.
And that is the lamest side mission I have encountered in all of Mad Max.
Oh, jeez.
Is drive, and, like, you can't fast travel with the buggy either. So I have to start off from a stronghold and drive the buggy from this stronghold all the way out to the farthest reaches of the province to defuse a single minefield, which is always 3 mines. Just 3 mines. And yeah, that's all I need the dog for, which sucks. Because I'd like the dog to be like D&D is cool, but like he doesn't have any purpose apart from like mine disposal dog.
So it seems to be a common theme that it's like there's a lot of cool elements and there's a lot of things that you like about it. You just wish that they kind of expanded upon them a little bit more.
Yeah, well, it's you know, I get that it's like a clone of. They're trying to do a movie tie-in, which is fine, and they did a really good job of doing a movie tie-in.
But you feel like it could kind of like evolve.
It could have had a lot more depth.
Yeah,
there's a lot of cool stuff going on. It's just odd sometimes. It is weird. I guess Rockstar must have sponsored this game because there's like a couple of weird like Rockstar cars that you can get, and like Rockstar energy drink like hood ornaments and stuff, and it's like. What? And they're like, it's like the thirst mobile, and it's like this little like buggy with like, and they're like, yes, it quenches your thirst for blood, and I'm like, there's just Rockstar symbols on everything. What, did they really sponsor this game that much? They just threw it in.
That's possible. But
I like it. It's just weird sometimes, and I oh my god, like the set pieces are so great sometimes, but they're so underdeveloped. At one point you have to venture into the Underdune, which is a super cool, like, it's an airport in a desert that has been covered over with sand, and like it's the like home base of these like raptor people. Well, not raptor people. They're called like the vultures or whatever, buzzards, and they wear gas masks all the time with like red, like glowing like eyes, and they like run around in like scraps, and all their cars are covered in spikes, and they're super cool and scary, and they add like a lot of cool horror elements to it, like when you're like going through their like stuff. But the caveat is like once you're done in the Underdune, there's nothing to go back for. You have one mission in the Underdune,
and that's it. Yeah.
And it's like, whoa, man, the Underdune was crazy. Yep. Okay.
Yeah,
you looted it.
You would have definitely liked to see a lot more of that.
I would have liked that. I like the fact that scrap is something that you use as currency and also as like upgrade points and stuff. And also, like, I like that when you're in a battle with cars and you blow up a car, that you get scrap for it if you have the right bonuses to the strongholds, which is a like good reason to like upgrade your strongholds. Trying to think what else I really like about Mad Max. I feel like the car customization is great, but there's no reason to have more than the one car. Like, you have the Magnum Opus, which is Chum Bucket's, like, custom ride that he makes for you, and, like, you can, like, you know, modify it however you want.
But that's all you ever really need.
That's all you ever need, because all the other cars that you can drive, you don't get Chum Bucket, who is the ultimate bro, and not only repairs your car, blows up other cars with a rocket launcher, has a harpoon that he can, like, knock out towers with and kill guys with.
Yeah.
And, like, do everything else. But, like, when you're in a regular car, there's no point.
All right.
Like, yeah, you can be disguised as another faction, but that's something that I just kill guys from other factions. Like, I don't need to ever be disguised as them.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay, so to kind of summarize in the same way that we did with Oxenfree, you're thinking, like, playable, non-playable, who would you recommend it to? Would it only be like hardcore fans of the movie? Could just anybody pick this game up?
I would say anyone can pick this game up on a sale. If you liked Arkham, if you just like the gameplay of Arkham Asylum, Arkham City, fine. If you kind of like Apocalyptic Wastelands, perfect. This game is great for you. If you're a huge fan of Mad Max, of course you've already bought this game. I'm not even talking to you, dude. Like, we both know that we're going to ride Eternal, Shiny, and Chrome on the highways of Valhalla, like, straight up. But, all that in mind, it's definitely a game to get during a sale.
Yeah.
Because $6 is a steal. Like, don't get it for $30. What are you, crazy? but honestly,
it's a good game. There are some good concepts. Like, not everything is fleshed out, so that's why it doesn't feel like it should be $30.
Here's the thing. It doesn't feel as in-depth as it could be. It feels like they did, like, cut corners in some places where they just, like, palette swapped certain guys. And I wish there was a little more story in sometimes, and I wish that there was a little more character development in sometimes, but I get that, like, this is expensive stuff that you can't always, like, get all of. One thing that I do really appreciate it for, which I think is the Mad Max token, is when you think about Fallout, and especially Fallout 4, you think of it's a bombed out apocalypse, but it's a bombed out apocalypse that you could, like, live in, right? That you could thrive in if you had the right stuff.
Right.
Mad Max is very good. Like, the game hits upon a very good Mad Max theme with the Mad Max style apocalypse, which is, this place is crazy. This place is so insane and, like, deadly. And just, like, it's such a dirty apocalypse compared to Fallout. And compared to, like, some of the other, like, sections you'll get. Like, in New Vegas, yeah, it's the apocalypse, but there's still civilization. There's still people who are running around, like, trying to harness old world relics and, like, use robots and crap and, like, laser guns to, like, better themselves. There's still the Brotherhood of Steel. There's still vaults. In Mad Max, it's like things are hopeless. Like, all you have left is being a crazy person or being really, really desperate. Like, there are times when you're like, okay, I need health, and one of the things you can do is like, oh, there's a corpse right over there that's been dead for a little while, and there's maggots growing in it. I can eat that and regain some of my health. And that's super gross, but, like, makes sense.
It makes sense in that universe.
Yeah. And it's one of those, and, like, normally you wouldn't be like, why is there a bathtub full of body parts? In this universe, it's to grow maggots that you then need to eat to, like, live, you know?
So it's a lot more of, like, the down and dirty, nitty-gritty apocalypse.
It's a real goddamn apocalypse.
All right.
Like, it's one of those things where, like, you can't just, like, oh, we're the Minutemen, and we say...
Yeah.
There is no room for ethics. There's no room for, you know, like, everyone's either a crazy person on an insane amount of drugs or, like, just, like, trying to survive.
Yeah, so it's a different perspective than a lot of other post-apocalyptic content that's out there these days. And that's good. That gives it something. It's got something in its court.
It's just gritty, and I like how gritty it is for what it is.
All right.
And it's unapologetically Mad Max, which is, like, the best part about it. That's all you can ask for with a Mad Max game.
All right, so there you have it, Mad Max and Oxenfree. So that was I think I'm going to enjoy this as it goes along. We'll develop this little boxcar segment.
We'll definitely have to get Pat, Harry, and Adam in on this.
Oh, yeah. And then we'll just, like, you know, we'll just talk about whatever. We're going to try and differentiate for this from the podcast to, like, mainly focus on, like, critical video game reviews and, like, a lot of the stuff that we really, really liked.
Yeah.
And, like, go off on the tangents that we would want to do during the podcast that we couldn't, normally.
The podcast has a certain amount of time that we can fill up, and this gives us sort of an outlet to get out maybe individual reviews of games or thoughts on stuff.
Yeah.
And, like, give us a platform to sort of talk about stuff more.
Yeah, it's not like we're going to stop talking about video games on the podcast. This is more of just, like, this is, like, stuff that we would normally talk about in a car ride that it's like, oh, man, we really should be recording this for the podcast.
Right.
But, you know, now we can find another outlet for that.
Exactly.
So this is it. This is Boxcars. I hope you guys enjoyed this first little foray. As always, we are the Talkbox Podcast. We're pretty much everywhere. You can follow us mainly on Facebook and YouTube at the Talkbox Podcast. We'll also probably actually have, also on iTunes as well to download the actual podcast. We'll probably not be putting this up there. We'll probably be putting this more on the YouTube channel. So you're already watching the YouTube channel, but please be sure to check out our other videos and whatnot. So, this is Boxcars. As always, I'm Chad.
I'm Zack.
And we will catch you guys next time.